All right, well, U.S. President Donald Trump marked 100 days of his second term with a fiery rally in Michigan. Trump declared he's ushering in a golden age of America and slammed what he called the radical left lunatics. Trump told supporters his administration delivers profound change and a revolution of common sense. Here's what U.S. President Donald Trump had to say in this rally.
We're ushering out the long reign of special interests and the radical left lunatics, and we're ushering in the golden age of America. That's what we have. But while we're fighting to protect Americans, the radical left Democrats, who are so bad for this country, are fighting to protect TDA, you just saw that, and MS-13 criminals, and you don't even know which is worse. And we had 4 great years. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. The stock market went up 88%. We did great. And we're going to do better now, because now we learned.
Donald Trump claimed a sharp drop in illegal border crossings and touted major deportations. Trump also promised economic revival, insisting car firms are lining up to invest in the United States. Trump sharpened his message on China by defending his tough trade stance. He said tariffs now sit at 145% and are ending what he called the greatest job theft in world history. He pledged any deal with Beijing would be fair, not a $1 trillion loss like under Biden. Let's look at U.S. President Donald Trump's comments on China during his rally.
The tariffs were ending the greatest job theft in the history of the world. China's taken more jobs from us than any country has ever taken from another country. And that doesn't mean we're not going to get along. We'll get along with China. I mean, the tariff now is at 145%. So essentially, that's a big difference between that and zero. But I think it's going to work out. They want to make a deal, and we're going to make a deal, but it's going to be a fair deal. It's not going to be a deal that we lose $1 trillion a year like they did with Biden.
Well, Trump also mocked Democrats, claiming he had already outworked all his campaign promises, insisting that he had done more in his first 100 days than his political force could ever dream of. As Trump rallies his base, he signals that the fight is far from over and promises you haven't seen anything yet. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that talks with India on tariffs were going great and that, according to him, the two countries would reach a trade deal very soon. Reportedly, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick also said earlier today that the Trump administration had reached a trade deal and was waiting for the country's approval to announce it. Moreover, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent affirmed that India could be one of the first to sign a trade deal with the United States. Let's take a look at what the U.S. president had to say on this.
India's coming along great. I think we'll have a deal with India. The Prime Minister, as you know, was here 3 weeks ago, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. Thank you.
All right. At this point in time, Quinton A. Hitchcock, American political consultant, is joining us on the program. Quinton, appreciate you being here. Well, Donald Trump, of course, has completed 100 days. We'll talk about the tariffs and the trade war with China. But, specifically focusing on the celebrations that we got to see in Michigan, Donald Trump is absolutely happy that he laid out what he promised in the manifesto. But the fact of the matter is that his approval ratings have also gone down simultaneously. What do you make of, these conflicting scenarios?
Well, it's certainly not good for the president. His approval rating right now sits at about 44%. Now, for context, Vineet, that is lowest among all presidents in the modern era at 100 days into office. The only president to have a job approval rating that's lower than that is Donald Trump, and he had that in his first term. So that's not a good sign for him. For some more context, only 7% of Democrats in this country have a positive view of his job performance. Just a hair over 30% of independent voters have a favorable view of his job performance. About 88% of Republicans think that he's done a great job. So his poll numbers are definitely not good. I think one of the reasons for that, maybe the biggest reason for that, is some of the issues that he got elected to fix, such as immigration, government spending, government control, the economy, inflation, tariffs. Most Americans, there's evidence to suggest that they think he's gone a little too far on those issues. So how he responds to that is entirely up to him and his administration. But the American people, I think, are a little concerned for the next couple years in our country for sure.
Quinton, do you think that most of these measures that have been implemented by Donald Trump, they could have been implemented in strides and not all together? Perhaps, there's too much that's come along with this presidency for the American people and the world to absorb. The American economy also has taken a hit. In fact, Republicans who support Donald Trump have also criticized him for biting off more than he can chew.
Certainly, I think that's a fair observation. I think any president wants to have a very strong, very effective first 100 days. That's how a lot of presidents are judged in this country. The first 100 days means a lot. It's certainly significant. So there's no question that the president wanted to accomplish a lot. I mean, perhaps he put more on his plate than he can chew. But let's take, for example, the biggest issue that he got elected on, and that was fixing the inflation problem that we have. The Consumer Price Index said that while in slightly, we're still up at about 2.4% of where we were just 12 months ago. So most Americans are not pleased with how the economy has been handled, specifically as it pertains to inflation, and then also the tariff disputes that we're engaging in with a lot of countries, most of which countries that have been very close allies to the United States for not just a couple years here and there, but for many decades. So this is a real concern for Americans. But to answer your question, again, the president certainly had a 4-year runway to get a lot of this stuff done. It's no surprise whatsoever to his supporters that he wanted to come out and get as much done very quickly. We saw that specifically with how he has handled the border and those in this country illegally. So we shall wait and see. I think the economy is going to be what turns this around if it does get turned around. But he definitely is putting off a significant portion of the American public, specifically independent voters that were solely responsible for getting him elected and helping him win all 7 of the swing states in this country, Michigan being one of them.
Absolutely. The swing states is in fact what worked for him. And Quinton, another observation is that Donald Trump, in the speech that we just heard, went on to say that China has stolen more jobs from Americans than any other country in the world. But the fact of the matter is that if an iPhone is manufactured in the United States, it's going to cost $5,000. That's economics 101. And I'm sure the American people know better.
A very famous comedian, Dave Chappelle, said something in his bit recently that in America, we want to wear Nikes, we don't want to make them. You're absolutely right about the iPhone. It would be 3 to 4 times the cost if it was entirely made in the US. President Trump has long said that he wants to bring back manufacturing jobs from China. The only issue with that is that while most Americans love the idea of manufacturing coming back to America, very few Americans actually want to work in manufacturing jobs themselves. So it's unclear. His approach to China, I think, is quite interesting. Does he want to bring back manufacturing jobs like he says, or is this simply just a negotiating tactic to bring them to the table so he can renegotiate and restructure a lot of what he views as unfair trade practices? Last thing I'll say as it pertains to China, most Americans, certainly most Republicans in this country, view China as their biggest adversary, our biggest adversary. That being said, President Trump has made it clear for many, many years, even before he ran for office 10 years ago, that he doesn't think it's a good idea for the world's largest economy to be entirely dependent on an adversary like China. So his approach to China will be interesting.
All right. Fabulous insights, Quinton. Always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for being here. Well, moving on, Russia and North Korea have started building their first road bridge across the Temin